Shabbat Shalom. It's our pleasure to be with you tonight at Manna from Heaven Ministries. We're looking in this weekly Torah portion as our custom has been for quite some time now, and we found that in every one of these weekly Bible readings, the cyclical message that he brings around to us at a quote-unquote set time, I have found that as I begin to look in it, it's a mirror. And as a teacher, before I can ever share with anyone else what I feel he's revealed to me for them, I find that he's always having me first to teach to the one that's in the mirror. Are you with that? And that one that I'm constantly facing is my most severe critic. And that's the one that I have a hard time getting to understand the word. I face this individual on a consistent basis. He's unruly. This may not apply to you. But this individual has a difficult time. Sometimes he gets so dull of hearing that I want to slap him across his jaw. And sometimes this individual that I'm looking at in the mirror, he's tired and he doesn't want to hear what Yahweh's speaking to me to tell him. And yet I have an obligation. And afterwards, after that struggle, after I've wrestled with this individual, I can then turn around and face a company of people that are primed and ready simply because I know that it fits, it works, because he gives it to me first. And if I haven't had the handling experience, if I haven't learned to trust him and sharing it with this individual I can look at in the mirror, then I'm not given the leave to turn around and share it with other individuals. I'll put it on the shelf until I can walk it out, me and this guy in the mirror. He's hard to face. He's hard to deal with. He's obstinate. Sometimes he can be very stubborn and prideful. And sometimes when I do share with this individual that I'm looking at in the mirror the things Yahweh's given me, he's slow to put it into practice. You follow me? These Torah cycles help me as a teacher because it puts this individual in proper perspective. And Yahweh shows me in these weekly Torah cycles the things that I need to address in conversation with this person. You hear me? I would be really a poor teacher if I looked at him and I saw how crooked he was and I didn't attempt to straighten him. If I saw the error in this individual, because see, whatever affects this one that I'm looking at in the mirror is going to determine where I'm headed next. And so I have not only a moral obligation to this one before I can bring it to you, but as I look at this one in the mirror, whatever I share with you is defined by how I minister to him first. And so don't get upset. When you hear a message, sometimes it's tough. If he could deal with it, you don't have a problem. Don't get upset if it seems like it's rubbing your fur backwards, or if it's like sandpaper on a corner rubbing off a rough edge. I dealt with this one. He's a lot tougher than what you are. He's hard to deal with. He's unruly. I have a hard time pointing out the faults with this one. And so when Yahweh shows me things in these Torah portions, and then I have to come and face this man, I have a hard time. Because this thing is sharp. And it pierces way down deep. See, I've watched him for 52 years. There's things hidden in this one. And sometimes it's a while before the light's exposed into these cracks and crevices. And I'll be honest with you, as long as things are going along real easy, this fella right here that I look at in the mirror, it doesn't change. He doesn't like change. He doesn't want his boat rocked. But I have found that by and large, before I can ever get things into this man's skull and then down into his spirit man, that a lot of times it takes adversity along with this message to get him to see it. But I'll tell you what else I've found. When he does, if and when he does get it, he hangs on to it like a bulldog. And he's not the same one that I saw a year ago. He doesn't look the same. He's changing. He's maturing. And his heart's becoming tender. A lot of the things that I used to share with him that Yahweh would be speaking into my spirit that was giving me a difficult time addressing, now all of a sudden I find him willingly sitting down with me. Let's address it together. Quickly acknowledging, yeah, that's one of my faults. That's one of my problems. I'm having trouble here. And that one that I found that when I would address problems and trying some constructive criticism with him, I find him now saying, Father, expose me. Chasten me. Correct me. And I'm finding more and more it's getting a lot easier to bring the word to him. And it's becoming more and more delight because we're not struggling as much as we used to. The fleshly man is hard to deal with. Yahweh wants to minister. He wants to minister to you. He wants to get in your business. He wants you to know how much he loves you. And he wants you to understand that there's nothing hidden in here that he hasn't seen. And he wants you to understand that every time that a word's brought to you, the purpose of that is so that you can look in the mirror. Before this thing's over with. This man's changing. And I don't really know what the end result's going to be. But I know shortly he's going to look just like him. If we can hold on. And my admonition to you this evening is to not be afraid to look in the mirror of his word. If some of the things that you hear doesn't pertain to you, stick it on a shelf. Don't let it upset you. Don't allow it to be an offense to you. Are you with me? He is working to change us into his image. And sometimes that means as the bride that he has to wash us with the water of his word. And we throw that phrase out so flippantly. But there's only one purpose that I can find for needing to be washed. The fact that I'm unclean. That's the only reason I can find to be needing the washing of the water of the word. And if he's talking about removing spots and wrinkles, that means that by necessity there's going to have to be some pressure and some heat applied to get the spots and wrinkles out. And so I find myself saying, Father, it's uncomfortable and it isn't pleasant. But I've counted the cost. And if I have to be pressed a little harder and go and stay in the heat a little bit longer, or if I need to hit the scrub board a little while, some of y'all may not know what that is. But if I need to, it's necessary for change. You believe that? I want you to do me a favor before we get too much further. I want you to turn to your neighbor, those of you listening via the net, and ask them, when's the last time you looked in the mirror? And when I'm talking about mirror tonight, I'm talking about the mirror of his word. That's what this Torah portion's about. This weekly Torah portion is going to show you some things about you in the mirror. And you know what's so exciting about it? Because we've been so conditioned to failure and our shortcomings, and we've developed a self-consciousness, poor self-image, sometimes all we can see is that old crusty man in the mirror. But if you can learn how to listen to him, he's going to show you the end result in this Torah portion. And he's going to show you that bride without spot or wrinkle. And how that bride's going to be merged back into the company of her husband. And he's going to put us in an Edenic condition like the world has never seen before. I believe that. If you'll look with me in Exodus chapter 25. This particular Torah portion, as we shared last evening, is one of the most unique that you'll discover as you read these cycles. It's one of a series of 5 that deals very specifically, very detailed information regarding the construction of the tabernacle, the construction and architectural designs that went into fabricating the tabernacle, and not only that, but the intricate details regarding how it was to be furnished. This Torah portion just begins it. And it would be to your best benefit to follow the line of thought that I'm trying to convey to you in this teaching with the next 4 that follow this one. Because if you can do that and you can understand that the tabernacle in the wilderness and later on Solomon's temple were designed to be the picture of a man in his physical form on the earth. And that picture, that pattern, goes all the way back to Genesis chapter 2, where Yahweh first took Adam and laid him out on an earthen altar, and then Adam, being a shadow picture of Messiah, and then reached into the side of Adam and took his bride, Eve, out of him. And from that point forward, he says, the only way that those two, listen to me, this is so awesome. The only way that Adam and his bride, Eve, which is Messiah, and his bride, the church, the only way that the two would ever be one again, echad. And we looked at that word echad in the Hebrew. It has the aleph prefix to it. And that word, that little single letter, is Yahweh speaking, and he says, I will. When it's appended to it, it means I will. Then you need to find out what the word chad means. And it means one, you. And by looking at that shadow picture of the husband and wife who have been separated and can never, from all intents and purposes in the natural, can never come back together, Yahweh says, wait a second, I will one you. I'll take and put you back together. And when I put the two together, it will be such a magnificent enterprise that all of creation will halt in its tracks and acknowledge the crowning pinnacle of Yahweh's handiwork, demonstrated in every facet of society. It's demonstrated in the relationship of a husband and wife. And every time we come together collectively as the bride, we call ourselves members of the body, the bride of Messiah. Every time we come together underneath these type structures, understanding this represents a tabernacle, it's a shadow picture of the Father taking and doing the very same thing, taking the bride and bringing her back into that oneness with Him. That's what's being depicted in this Torah portion. If you look in Genesis chapter 2, verse 23, it begins to lay a foundation so that you can understand the intent of the Father. Because when we start looking at it, we really don't have the proper, especially in the Western church today, we really don't have the proper understanding of how important it is to be in a communal relationship in the sanctuary, the tabernacle, the building, if you will. And we understand that it's not the building that's the bride, it's those that are inside the building. But you have to understand what I'm saying, because I shared last night, Hebrews chapter 10, verse 25 says, and forsaking not the assembling of yourselves together as the manner of some is, but even more so as you see the day approaching. What he's talking about is how important